Westbrook was unbelievably nervous. The family later sued for wrongful death and received an out-of-court settlement of $1.25 million, reduced to $750,000 or about $3.9 million today. They also got a personal apology from President Gerald Ford and the then CIA Director William Colby. But they still knew something was being kept secret. Eric was sure his father had been pushed out of a window, but by whom and why? Was there more to this story than just their pop watching people getting tortured and killed in Vietnam and Germany? Number 2. Assistant Manhattan District Attorneys Stephen Sirocco and Daniel Bibb later investigated the case to once and for all get to the bottom of it. During their investigation, they discovered a White House identity sheet listing names and places related to Olsen. One of the names was Pierre Lafitte, and number 11 on the sheet was the town of Pont-Saint-Esprit. They never could prove that Olsen was murdered, but they thought it was likely the case. At one point in their case, they were contacted by 2 former CIA agents named Albert and Neil, fake names. They said Olsen had indeed been involved with Project Span at Pont-Saint-Esprit, but the experiment had gone wrong. Someone had made a terrible mistake. The attorneys also found documents saying that before the Deep Creek Lake spiking of drinks, Dr. Abramson had written that its purpose was trapping Olsen. But why did they want to trap him? Olsen knew they were after him. He'd said too much, says one theory. Indeed, after witnessing torture in Germany, an Army sergeant reported that Olsen seemed deeply disturbed over what he had seen in CIA safe houses in Germany, and displayed symptoms of not wanting to keep secret what he had witnessed. The CIA received that report. Deep Creek Lake then might have been to see if Olsen would talk about what happened in either Germany or France when under the influence of LSD. Again, this is theory, not proven fact, but the evidence is compelling. If he had talked to outsiders about Pont-Saint-Esprit, the USA would have looked very, very bad. It was almost an act of war. The whole world would have condemned the US and rightly talked about breaching the Nuremberg Code. The US would have been said to be no better than the Nazis. The attorneys discovered that after Olsen's visit to France, he had spoken out of line with several colleagues about the town. He opened his mouth in a place where you were not supposed to do that. The investigative journalist we mentioned before, H.B. Albarelli Jr., interviewed former SOD staff about Pont-Saint-Esprit. According to one interview, Pont-Saint-Esprit was mentioned in the same sentences as aerosol LSD and contaminating food sources. But Albert and Neil would not testify under their real names. That was way too dangerous. They supplied the information, that was enough. Albarelli Jr. confirmed that they were definitely ex-CIA, but they wouldn't testify. Number 1. The night Olsen died, Lafitte was working undercover with one of his false names at, have a guess, the Statler Hotel. According to Albert and Neil, Spirito was also there. They'd been told to watch over Olsen. According to Albert and Neil, the plan had been to take Olsen to Chestnut Grove, which you'll remember was the CIA-sponsored mental health facility and home to many of their cruel experiments. They said Olsen became unhinged that night. They attempted to move him from the room and get him in a car, but something went wrong, they said. Olsen resisted, and in the ensuing struggle was pitched out of the window. So, was that what really happened? Like with so many CIA stories, you could say it seems likely, but despite all the circumstantial evidence, you still can't join all the dots with absolute certainty. If anything, the CIA is pretty good at its job. For our sake, let's just hope it's learned some ethics since those dark days. If not, you might wonder what is it up to today. 1979, the world casts a wary eye towards Afghanistan. The year prior, Nur Muhammad Takari had seized power and installed a communist government, much to the Soviet Union's pleasure. However, Takari's government has turned brutally oppressive with mass executions and extrajudicial arrests. The move sparks an insurgency, widely labeled as the Afghan Mujahideen. While the same name has a religious significance, the truth is the rebel forces are split along the ideological lines, with some practicing hardcore fundamentalism and others embracing secularism. They are united, however, in their wish to overthrow the Takari regime. In April, Nur Muhammad Takari is removed from power forcefully and replaced with Hafizullah Amin a few months later in September. At first, Amin tries to quell the growing rebellion with friendly overtures, but his security forces disappear thousands of people behind the scenes. The abuses only increase as time goes on, and the rebellion festers. Amin is so unpopular that the Soviet Union begins to suspect he's a CIA plant, purposefully placed in power in order to collapse the Afghan communist government. On December 25, 1979, the Soviet Union invades Afghanistan. Its goal is simple: remove Amin from power and establish a legitimate communist government. 2 days later, Soviet special forces locate and assassinate Amin. The war, if it can be called that, should be over in a matter of months. It would last 10 years. The United States is initially caught off guard by the Soviet Union invasion. Its intelligence efforts in the region have been to date an almost complete failure. The CIA and other intelligence agencies have been largely focused on Central and South America due to communism paranoia in the effort to keep the perceived threat out of America's own backyard. To date, the CIA has funneled $500,000 worth of medical and non-lethal aid to the Mujahideen, but not supported the insurgency in any significant way. Soviet fears of American intervention in Afghanistan are hilariously overblown, but that will soon change. Discussions about Soviet interventionism in Afghanistan have been taking place for months, though nobody suspected a full-blown invasion was truly imminent. America has a very real interest in making the Afghan situation difficult for the Soviets, but differ on how important it truly is.